thank you for a very nice introduction. Yes, indeed, I hope you all agree that in our country and in Western societies we have a problem that is arising with increased overweight and obesity. And indeed, my topic is in this. My talk is within topic because a couple of years ago we were lucky to have a target-financed grant on this theme, so we focused a bit off from training also and started to investigate a bit all kind of health-related behavior. So what I talk about is about current situation and changes in recent years. I mainly focus on in this region because I show the studies that we have done in Estonia and with a cooperation with our colleagues. I will talk a bit how fitness and fatness, how do they contribute to health, and are there any differences in there. I hope you all need how much activity do we need to stay healthy, but maybe there is also something we have to think about, that maybe those norms that we currently know, maybe they are not enough. And at the very latest part of my presentation, I will talk a little bit of the sedentary behavior and what kind of health risks might this have. So if we take the endpoint with a definition like or disease like metabolic syndrome and all associated diseases that are related to that, we all know that the fatness is actually a main contributor to there. And indeed, if we are more fat, probably we are less fit, meaning that maybe the fitness influence is there also to the metabolic syndrome. And in fact, it has been shown that really in adults or elderly people, the more fit you are, actually the less problems you are. They might not be related so much on the fatness. And indeed, we have here physical activity that contributes to both of the factors, fitness and fatness. And although, if we think about physical activity, it is not so stable concept concerning to fitness, meaning that if we are fit and we change our physical activity a bit, it does not mean that we instantly get unfit. Or if we are unfit and we start to be physically active, it must take a certain time before we can say that, okay, we are fit also. So in those terms, actually the fitness might be a very good population-based concept that we have to monitor in terms of long-term effects. What does this have on public health and all kinds of costs that we actually have to pay in the future for that? So how fit we are? Actually, at least in Estonia, we suspected that the fitness levels have been changing within 20 years that we have been free. And last year there was a very nice study published which actually compared 50 different countries and their fitness level. But they used the 20-meter shuttle run. That is a very good variable to characterize fitness, but maybe not so much find in the literature anymore compared, for example, to VO2 max values. And they included 177 studies from those countries. Actually, they had about 800 studies available, but they had to eliminate some of them because they used different protocols or they used different subjects, and the final number included was 177. And the test results were standardized to the speed of the last stage. And they also took into account the age of the subject. So the tests were made for 11 years until 17 years old children. And what became very surprised to us, because in Tartu University we have started to negotiate with our government that we need to change something in the society because our children are getting more fat and unfit. the results were not very, sorry, there have been actually some changes in the figures. I don't know why, but the sad point was that actually Estonia was in the second position here, meaning that our children are really very, very fit. So, sorry, it's not shown, and Lithuania was on the 7th place, I guess. So it was very surprised as how it can be that Estonian children are so fit, second one after Tanzania. So we looked into the study more carefully, and we saw that the only study that Estonia was included dated back from late 90s. So I think, and I'm pretty much sure, and it is the same study that Lithuania was also. It was a study done in cooperation with our Lithuanian colleagues, and of course the physical activity and fitness levels in the late 90s are something more different than nowadays. Yeah, sorry, the figures are a bit away, but the colleagues from Latvia, you have been much more better from us because you have a study dated from 2011, but unfortunately I cannot show you. This put you in the penultimate place for this country, so you were quite in the lower top of the 50 countries. But I'm not sure, but I'm quite sure actually that the situation currently in Estonia and Lithuania is pretty much the same in Latvia, so that the fitness level in our countries are really not what they were. So we have one study that actually dates back from 1998. It initially started as the European Youth Heart Study, where Tartu University was also invited to the consortia. And in 1998, 9-year-old children and 15-year-old children, like pre-pubertal and post-pubertal children, were invited, and approximately 1,200 children were recruited. And we have followed them afterwards for several times. In 2014, we were able to collect about 80% of those who were initially participating. And this study includes all kinds of health data, personality, behavior, also genetic data, and gives a very good opportunity to look what have been the changes within one cohort through the changes in society. We actually also invited their parents meanwhile, and we were happy to get about 1,500 parents also. And currently we are investigating those subjects who were 15 years old 20 years ago. They are now 33 years old, and currently about 400 we have already measured, and a bit 100 maybe more to come. So, what are the results? If we look how active those children have been at the age of 15 years old, you can see that those children who have been active in a week, it was a questionnaire-based, these are results that are based on questionnaire. So the question was, how many days have you been active in the previous week? At least 30 minutes. And you can see that at the age of 15, there are about 5 to 10% of those who have been, the activities are 0 or 1 days, meaning that the activity levels are quite high. And you can see how quickly actually the activity pattern has been changed within 10 years. And at the age of 25, about 80% of those who have been active are now can be regarded to inactive. Actually, it has no big difference in when comparing Swedish and Estonian children. It's a data of the same study published by Ortega and colleagues in 2013, and you can see that the activity patterns, they are now accelerometry based. They are decreasing no matter how active the children are at the beginning. And also the activity of the weekend days is also decreasing. And sedentary behavior, of course, going up. So currently we have reached to a situation where, at least in Estonia, I guess it's pretty much the same in Latvia and Lithuania also, that approximately 16% of us do not fulfill the requirements that World Health Organization advises. And this has actually been the result of our change in physical activity. The same children who were in the study at 1998, they were 15 years old, about 10% of them were overweight. And it did not increase, significant increase when they came back in 3 years later, but within the next 8 years, during the period of university or after graduating secondary school, you can see that approximately half of Estonian youngsters are overweight. So it was quite a surprise for us. Not so much evident in ladies, and we actually were quite concerned what happens if the younger cohort will arrive to the lab in 2014. The general picture actually is pretty much the same. There is a very sharp increase, although the increase is not so big, being a bit 10% less. The reason, I don't know, maybe we have been a bit more successful in terms of raising the evidence of being active and focusing on the aspects that obesity is bad for your future health. But yeah, we can see in the future, maybe if those subjects that are currently now being investigated in this year, maybe we can see what happens to their obesity or overweight rates. So indeed, we can see that the fatness is a problem. So I was slightly talking also about fitness and its relation to health, and there is also already quite a long time known evidence that if you are obese and if you are actually fit, no matter that you are obese, your chances of being like a premature death due to metabolic syndrome or non-communicable diseases is approximately the same as if you were normal weight but also unfit. So it indicates clearly that in adolescents or in adults or elderly people, the more fit you are, the better health you probably are. So we use the same data that we have from the study, and we included two cohorts when they were 18 years old. So we got about 800 subjects, and we studied their metabolic syndrome score by using 5 different blood characters and blood pressure and anthropometric measures. And we also, their fitness was also measured on cycle ergometry, and they were characterized as low, average, or high fitness based on the following parameters. So, and the effect and the aim of our study was that does the fitness already in such a young age can contribute significantly to health, independently of fatness. So the results indicated that if a non-adjusted model was used, you can see that fitness, if we compare with those people who are highly fit and those who are low fit, it indicates that they have about 7 times higher incidence of being or having a higher metabolic syndrome score. But as I already told, that body mass or body fat has also a significant contribution to metabolic syndrome risk score. We also then, in the another model, we controlled for those several factors that have also influence. And indeed, if BMI was also included in the model, you can see that the effects of fitness actually decrease. But they stay still significant if we compare high and low fit people, that you have about 3 times less chances of higher metabolic syndrome score if you have higher body weight, but you are fit. So one of the conclusions from there, in terms of maybe overweight people, is that you should exercise, not because you should lose weight, but if you exercise, you can get a better health, no matter that your body mass is can be changed. So, and in terms of the coming back to the very first slide, that actually did not manage very good in this hardware. In 90s, about half of the children actually fulfilled the norms of the World Health Organization, and it has been decreasing with age. Currently, they are approximately 16%. If we now look at the health behavior study of school children, that I guess is done also in Lithuania and Latvia, currently there are 16% of those children who fulfill the criteria, meaning that there are approximately 3 times less children compared to the late 90s. And this is our goal now, or our target, or what we can do. Can we prevent the decrease here? I think it's a very complicated task. I hope that the decrease will not be so sharp like here, but maybe in the next 5 or 8 years we can show you some results. Are there any changes in that, or we face a big problem in the future? So the promotion of physical activity becomes very, very important. So the more physically active we are, the more fit we probably are. And this study was published in Scandinavian Journal of Sports Medicine by Palma-Hion and colleagues. And he also investigated Estonian and Swedish children, and how do they go to school? Do they go to school like actively, using cycling or walking, or they go to school non-actively? And of course, those children who went to school actively, they had significantly higher levels of physical activity. But what actually was important, what is important, that those who actively go to school, they have about 2 times more chances of fulfilling this MBPA norm. And if you compare walking or cycling, you can see that, for example, if compared to walking or cycling, actually walking contributes more. There might be some, the reason for that might be because accelerometer does not track cycling very well. But in terms of physical activity, actually, maybe walking is better. But if we look at the fitness level, you can see that those children who actually went to school on cycling, they had a great, more higher fitness level. Meaning that walking itself, actually it contributes to your physical activity. But it does not necessarily increase your fitness, because if you walk, you usually do it in a slow way. But if you cycle, you usually cycle at more higher speeds. So if we talking about promotion, I think there are 2 aspects. Whether to promote just physical activity, or whether this physical activity also promotes fitness. Another interesting aspect that comes back to the previous lecture also, do we need training or do we not need training? I think for this audience there is no question. Of course we need to train. But those studies that we have done in about 600 children indicate that if we take the World Health Organization norms, whether the children are active each day of the week for 60 minutes, you can see that those children who will not participate in any trainings, about 20% of them fulfill the norms. So I think it's quite an expected result. But similar way, those children who actually do go to trainings 3 times a week, there's no change. there are still 20% of those who only fulfill the norms and 80% do not fulfill. Why? I don't know. Probably the question is that they only do this in 3 days, and 4 days of the week they are doing nothing. So this is again communication of the parents, of the coaches, and the children. What are they doing in their free time? And usually parents think if my child goes to training for 3 times a week, then it's enough. Yes, it should have been enough if on the other days the child also goes outside and does some activity. About sedentary behavior. Scientists currently suggest that being active does not necessarily mean that you are sedentary. And they are two different concepts. If you can imagine that, for example, if I as an adult, so my suggestion is, WHO activity suggestion is that I should be active 3 times, 150 minutes per week. And it's about 30 minutes, 5 days a week. And if I'm being active on a day, 30 minutes, and the rest of the day I'm sitting or doing nothing, can I be considered active? I think no. I think I'm pretty much sedentary. So the effect of sedentary behavior might be independent of the effect of active. Unfortunately, quite a lot of the studies in previous year have actually extended their results based on the activity, saying that those people who are active, if they are better health, means that if they are not so active, they are more sedentary. It does not necessarily be like this. The effect is difficult to measure because the activity runs over the effect of sedentarity in quite a lot. And that's why there are also actual cut points that say, okay, you would need to sit, for example, currently the WHO says that it's about 5 hours a day that you should not sit longer. And if you sit 2 hours in a row, you should take some break. And we have also another study that started in 2009 where we studied pubertal boys each year. So this will allow us to get quite small gap of longitudinal data of a very critical period of the subjects. And at first we studied about these physical activity cut points, how well they contribute to being overweight or obese. And if you look, there is actually quite a good correlation of moderate to vigorous activity that the cut point is somewhere in 60 minutes. And actually, if we then divided the subjects according to this cut point, it actually had quite a good predictor. On the other side, for sedentary behavior, it was about 9 hours a day, if there is any borderline. But it did not have any prediction if we then divided the subjects being sedentary or not sedentary according to the criteria that the sedentary behavior will have any effect or not any effect. But indeed, moderate physical activity also did not have effect, but the most significant contributor was vigorous physical activity, as expected. But you can see that it means that if we're now currently speaking about the norm of being active for 60 minutes, it should include at least 14 minutes of moderate to vigorous activity. Otherwise, relying only moderate activity, it might not be enough for children to be either overweight or obese. So we studied also the different cut points that have emerged in the literature, and we also used there a longitudinal design by comparing baseline and follow-up. And you can see that the most probably by investigating whether you are overweight or obese based on your physical activity, the most significant contributor was actually 90 minutes of MBPA. And this 60 minutes of MVPI, that is a current WHO norm, has much less predictability. Why? I don't know. What we suggested in the manuscript also was that this norm is actually quite old, and it is based on the assumption that there are also significant amounts of light activities. But currently, maybe the amount of light activities has decreased so much that this norm might not be so effective anymore. And for obese people, of course, the inclusion of vigorous activities is quite important. And one important aspect also from this slide is actually that if we want to predict obesity based on physical activity, you can see that the baseline or the cross-sectional actually data has much more stronger predictability than the longitudinal data. It means that probably if we look at longitudinal data and physical activity, there are much more other contributors that start to affect body composition, which cannot be taken into account with designs like this. So cross-sectional data, if there are studies, they probably overestimate the effect of physical activity by being to predict body weight status. And as I told you previously, that sedentary behavior might be difficult to measure, especially in young age or school age children. Why? What we think, one aspect might be that if you measure school children, most of the time they're sitting in school. So most of their sedentary behavior is very much the same. And if we now want to measure all the sedentary behavior, this school-based contributor, it is very similar for all of them. And maybe it's wise to look at for weekdays and for weekend days. And maybe to divide it in boats, meaning that if you sit for smaller boats like 1 or 3 minutes, or in longer boats, meaning that you sit in a row in 40 minutes, maybe this might have some advantage to indicate that sedentary behavior might also have some effect on health parameters. And you can see that it might be really so, because most of the effects that are found on the weekdays, meaning that or weekend days, meaning that on weekdays both children, they sit almost the same time, and the differences might become on the weekdays. And one interesting fact was also that if you look at the association numbers, that with the small boats, they are like negative, meaning that if you gather your sitting time in small boats, the effect is negative. But for smaller, longer boats, actually the effect becomes positive, meaning that the longer you sit in longer boats,
your time
has
is
negative
2 minutes.
effect.
It's 2 minutes.
Okay. And it's not so bad that when you sit in smaller boats, so you make some breaks between. So, and to the end, some of the doctoral theses that have also studied sedentary behavior. A colleague from Latvia, Artur Šiburskans, he graduated his thesis 2 years ago, and he studied whether the sedentary behavior can have some effect on bone. We all know that, and it's very much clear that if you do high impact exercise, you get stronger bones. And we used preliminary longitudinal data that we had, and you can focus on femoral neck bone mineral density, where indeed sedentary time together with vigorous physical activity had the effect. Vigorous for positive, meaning if you are more positive, you have stronger bones. If you are indeed the same time negative, you have the negative effect also by the sedentary behavior. And for femoral neck bone mineral component, only sedentary time appeared as the main contributor, meaning that if you sit more, you probably have not so good bones. And also from Lithuania, we had Tonvina Vaitkevičiūtė, who studied also different weight categories subject. And you can see also that actually the underweights, they are mostly active, and also the obese ones, they are not so less active. And I want to focus also on lean body weight, that is very quite a significantly less for underweights. And one of her main result was actually that it is indeed the lean body mass that has also a very powerful predictor for bone development. And despite of that, lean body mass, the bone, they are not in this table, but the bone mineral density for those underweights was quite a small. That also might be one suggestion that no matter what, if an underweight subject fulfills the criteria of moderate to vigorous activity, due to less lean body mass, the effect of the bones might not be so big. So for conclusion, of course, we have had a decrease in physical activity levels, which will have the effect. And we should target also not only our programs to increase of physical activity, but only in those terms that those activities that we should target improve also our fitness. Is 60 minutes MBPA enough? I don't know. Some of the countries have started to use their own criteria. For example, in Finland it's 90, in Canada is also 90. Definitely 60 minutes MBPA is not enough for health of the lean, of the underweight in terms of bone health. And sedentary behavior, it indeed has effects on several parameters, but the effect is also complicated to measure. And the one reason that is complicated to measure I didn't mention, but it's probably because if you become sedentary, the effect will be very long-term, not a very quick effect. So, and also thank for the co-workers who have done this work and helped this. And yeah, thank you for your patience.